You are listening to part 72 of our series, 7 Medicines, The Wise Woman Way with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan, and welcome to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Jim and I. Well, we've certainly been learning a lot about steroids, cortisone, adaptogens, and a variety of things that perhaps weren't in our vocabularies at the beginning of the month. You remember that I was having lunch with Stephen Herod Booner, and I told him that there weren't really estrogens implants, except for a few exceptions, but that what most plants had is phytosterols. Phytosterols are very widely spread throughout the plant kingdom, and they act like the beginning forms of hormones in our bodies. In other words, when we consume roots, which are loaded with phytosterols, and that would be roots like sweet potatoes, beets, carrots, turnips, parsnips, potatoes, radishes, or herbal roots, especially sweet herbal roots, burdock, codonopsis, ginseng, wild yam, dong quai, eleuthero, astragalus, maca, suma. When we eat those roots, we are getting these phytosterols, and then our bodies can convert the phytosterols into biologically active hormones. If we eat more seeds, like whole grains, beans, nuts, and edible seeds, all those seeds are rich sources of phytosterols. And so we are going to have lots of phytosterols in our body available for us to use as the building blocks of any hormones that we need. We talked about spinach and ecsterols in spinach. Leafy greens contain phytosterols, especially spinach, nettle, chard, kale, collards, mustard greens, lamb's quarter, and amaranth. The more leafy greens that we have in our diet and the better cooked they are, the more of these phytosterols we will have available to ourselves. Berries, in which we eat the seeds with the berry, are, of course, also a source of phytosterols. And herbally, we have vitex berry, saw palmetto berry, and goji berry. And flowers may sometimes have phytosterols, like linden flowers, red clover flowers, hops flowers, marijuana flowers, and chamomile flowers. Remember that steroids are specialized hormones, and that all hormones are messengers. Hormonal messengers carry messages to the body's cells. Different steroids carry different messages, and thus they create different responses in the cells. Because steroids are created and used by virtually all plants and animals, they can be freely exchanged between us. Testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, and cholesterol are some examples of natural steroids. Unlike the synthetic steroids, the corticosteroids, and the anabolic steroids, natural steroids have few, if any, side effects. That's why they are considered the fountain of youth. So, in my book, New Menopausal Years, The Wise Woman Way, I devote a pretty long chapter to phytosterols, because I think it's very important, especially as we move into menopause, to start to understand what hormones are and exactly what is happening. So starting on page 69, I start talking about phytosterolic, phytoestrogenic plants. And I say that virtually every part of every plant found in the world contains some phytosterol or phytoestrogen. But they are most concentrated in seaweeds, roots, seeds, buds, and berries. When we take in these natural phytosterolic and phytoestrogenic substances, they are not just one thing. In other words, ginseng doesn't contain one type of sterol, it contains dozens of types of sterols. This allows our bodies to create hormones in a way that creates very few side effects. When we consume a plant that not only has phytosterols, but also minerals, glycosides, saponins, antioxidants, then amazing things can happen. In fact, like the bodybuilders who want to stack their drugs to get the most out of them, the plants have already stacked the components that we need to have good hormonal health and the things that corticosteroids and anabolic steroids promise us, which is freedom from inflammation, good energy, and powerful muscles. I divide the plants that we can use into three rough categories. Phytosterolic, phytoestrogenic foods. And these basically can be used in any quantity daily and for as long as we want. Food like herbs, phytoestrogenic food like herbs, which are longevity tonics, just as the phytosterolic foods are, and like them, can be used in fairly much unlimited amounts for every day for the rest of your life. And then there are some phytosterolic herbs. I think that it's probably best if we treat these herbs as something different than the foods and the food-like herbs. Most of these herbs are just too powerful to be long-term companions, although some of them can be used for years. And overuse can be hazardous. Alcohol extracts of phytoestrogenic herbs have increased uterine weight in lab animals and changed endometrial cells in the uterus. Some ongoing studies looking at effects of hops have found that it may be possible for it to drive prostate cancer. So when we look at these three different categories, then we have an idea of how to get more phytoestrogens into our diet. But why would we want to do that? The primary reason is that phytoestrogens keep us healthy, keep us young, and actually help prevent cancer. This is quite possibly one of the most confusing things in herbal medicine today, and that is the idea that there are estrogens in plants. This idea has given rise to a very strong belief that if you have an estrogen-sensitive cancer, then you then can't use an herb like red clover, which is known to, quote, have a lot of estrogen in it. When a woman tells me that she can't drink red clover because she has an estrogen-sensitive breast cancer, I ask her if her doctor has told her not to eat carrots and not to eat bread. And, of course, she looks at me like I've lost a screw somewhere. So the plants that we have focused in on as being estrogenic are not estrogenic. They contain phytosterols, and those phytosterols are not active in the plant as consumed. We take 100 women and we give them a serving of beans. Beans are a seed. They contain phytosterols. When those phytosterols are acted on by gut things, the bacteria, the viruses, the fungi, all the microorganisms in the gut, when they get hold of these phytosterols and start working them over, then they're actually able to change them into hormones, into active, biologically active hormones. And when they do that, that's a metabolic process. And so it creates metabolic byproducts. Those metabolic byproducts are flushed out in the urine. So we can take 100 women, feed them a serving of beans, collect the urine, check it for metabolic byproducts, and then follow those women for 15 years to see what happens to them. It turns out that the 25 women who excrete the least metabolic byproducts, in other words, who are getting the least from their beans, they're making the smallest amount of conversion from the phytosterols into biologically active hormones. Those 25 women are 400 times more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer than the 25 women who produced the most metabolic byproducts. So why do we want phytoestrogens? Why do we want phytosterols in our diet? Because they help prevent cancer. The adaptogenic herbs that I was talking about last week that can act like long-term like corticosteroids are one of the critically important parts of the phytosterol-rich herbs. So what are we saying here? We're saying that I could give you a list of all kinds of phytosterolic-rich herbs, but that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get any hormones from them. Unlike a drug which simply overwhelms your body and says, this is what we're going to do, the phytosterols are possibilities, not givens. We have to have the gut flora that can correctly work on those phytosterols and turn them into active hormones. It's a good reason to eat some yogurt on a daily basis, and it's an even better reason to not use essential oils. Remember that we said that fats are critically important. So when we are using phytosterols, phytosterolic-rich plants, if we use them with something that is fatty, we get a little extra boost. Remember when we were talking about those studies some weeks ago of the men being injected with testosterone, that the ones who got the placebo were just injected with sunflower oil, because testosterone, as injected, is injected in an oil base. Essential oils are very disruptive to gut flora, and that's whether we breathe them in, ingest them, or put them on our skin. All of these ways get to the gut and mess up gut flora and make it much more difficult for us to get the phytosterols to convert into biologically active hormones. Let's look at some of the specifics here in the book. The phytosterolics, phytoestrogenic foods that I recommend be eaten on a regular basis include all whole grains. And they are superior sources of quite a few active phytosterolic substances, such as lignans, which you're going to find most in rye, buckwheat, millet, sesame, flax, and sunflower, resorcilic acid lactones, which are mostly in oats, barley, rye, wheat, corn, rice, and sesame seeds, and isoflavones, significant amounts of which occur in whole grains. Most of the phytosterols in seeds are in the germ and the bran. One of the reasons that modern people had a lot of health problems is that we are not getting the germ and the bran in our grains, and thus we are not getting these phytosterolic-rich substances on a daily basis. Beans are phytoestrogen champions. Yellow split peas, black turtle beans, baby limas, anasazi beans, red kidney beans, and red lentils are exceptionally rich sources of the isoflavones genistein and diidzin. In fact, they have more than soy does. Virtually every edible bean, even green beans, are rich in isoflavones, coumestins, and lignans. But remember that beans need to be cooked well or fermented, as in miso, in order to get rid of the anti-nutritional substances. And that's why neither tofu nor soy milk are recommended if you want healthy phytosterols. Leafy greens contain a mix of phytoestrogenic substances, including isoflavones. Fruits and berries are good sources of isoflavones and lignans, and that means cherries, grapes, apples, peaches, pears, plums, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, hawthorn berries, salmon berries, apricots, goji berries, crab apples, quinces, rose hips, blueberries, vitex berries, and saw palmetto berries. Now, the native people claimed that they ate saw palmetto berries down there in Florida, but I'll tell you, if you have a Western palate, you're not going to get anywhere near eating saw palmetto berries. It's pretty much going to be restricted to tincture use for those of us who do not like the smell or the taste of them. Olives, being rich in fats, are an excellent source of phytoestrogenic coumestin. Garlic and its smelly relatives are also hormone-rich. And pomegranate, a fruit rich in fertility associations, is also rich in hormones. There, as I said, is a little weak estrone in 100 grams of pomegranate. There's about 1.7 milligrams, really not very much at all, but it's in the seeds. And for that reason, pomegranate juice is one of the few juices that I suggest to people, because it actually contains a very mild amount of estrogen, which can be helpful for some women as they age. Phytoestrogenic food like herbs include citrus peel, which we talked about before, great source of the estrogenic bioflavonoids. Dandelion, not only exceptionally rich in plant hormonal precursors, a supreme nourisher to the liver. Dandelion, of course, is an American adaptogen and one of the best. It is non-toxic, it is non-specific, and it is tremendously normalizing. Fenugreek is a seed, and it's a very interesting seed called Messi in India, and a really delicious tea. Is easy to drink. In India, they actually grind it up and use it to season food. But fenugreek is not just a seed, it's the seed of a bean. And it's a tasty, delicious seed of a bean. So it really has a 1-2 punch to restore blood sugar balance, nourish the glands, improve digestion, increase libido, and ease all those menopausal symptoms. Flaxseed. Did I fail to mention flaxseed in my list of seeds? Flax seeds have a lot of lignans, up to 800 times more than other foods, and lots of omega-3 fatty acids too, although not directly in that form. Daily use of up to 3 tablespoons of ground flaxseed has been shown to reduce the risk of breast cancer. Green tea actually helps block the action of estrogen at tumor sites. I wonder if the bodybuilders who are concerned about their anabolic steroids amortizing and becoming estrogen, I wonder what would happen if they drank more green tea. Well, we probably won't find out. But if you're a bodybuilder and you do it, tell me, because I am interested. Hops provides abundant phytoestrogens, and sometimes seems from studies, and sometimes not, that even as little as a beer can have some effect on prostate cancer. Certainly not anything proven yet, but we're looking at it. Nettle is a good source of hormone-helpful minerals, phytoestrogens, and vitamins. It's one of the best herbs that I know of for really damping down the cortisone response, restoring the adrenals to prime efficiency, giving you lots and lots and lots of energy, and eliminating allergies, eliminating puffiness, eliminating asthma. Again, nettle is a true adaptogen. It's not specific. It just makes everything about you better. Red clover has 10 times more phytoestrogens than soy. That's what freaks the doctors out. But it also has lots of bone-building minerals, including calcium and magnesium. A red clover infusion can ease the pain of rheumatoid arthritis, ease the pain of menses, prevent and perhaps even reverse breast cancer, and help to maintain cardiovascular health. Red clover vinegar is mineral and hormone rich, but I generally prefer to drink my red clover. Keep some seasoning seeds around: coriander and cumin, celery and caraway, poppy seed and sesame, mustard and fenugreek, anise and fennel. They're all seeds that contain phytoestrogens. Use them lavishly when cooking, or make a tea with them by putting a tablespoon of any seed in a cup of hot water and letting it brew. If you do as they do in India and take your seasoning seeds and throw them into hot oil, you will get even more of the phytoestrogens from them because you have broken that hard seed coat. If you don't believe me, just watch what happens when you eat sesame seeds without popping them in hot oil. If you look in the toilet the next day, you'll see every single sesame seed that you ate waving bye-bye to you. What did you get out of them? Virtually nothing, alas. Seaweeds are second only to flax in concentrations of lignans. Seaweeds are a real secret of health in the Japanese diet, not soy. I do my best to keep a large selection of seaweed on hand, including alaria, dulse, hijiki, kelp, kombu, nori, sea palm fronds, and wakame. And I use them as a vegetable, not just as seasoning. Okay, I'm not saying you can't use seaweed as seasoning. You can. That's perfectly fine to use seaweed as a seasoning, but also use it as a vegetable so that you really get some significant amounts of seaweed. The hormone that seaweed, of course, has an influence on is thyroid hormone because of seaweed's very high amount of iodine. Seaweed is a direct phytoestrogen, and as such can create for the body the field from which any kinds of hormone can be made. Fava beans, it turns out, have a particularly high content of L-DOPA. I'm sure you've heard of L-DOPA. It's a drug that's given to people when they have Parkinson's disease. In fact, L-DOPA is a natural steroid, and it's the precursor for both dopamine and human growth hormone. Human growth hormone is kind of like another steroid there that people are taking, thinking that it will make them strong, healthy, and young forever. But that's not where we find it from. Not a pill. We're going to eat more fava beans. How about some celery with your fava beans. According to the latest research, even the scent of celery can stimulate testicles to produce more testosterone. Woo-hoo! I wonder if the scent of celery can make women produce more testosterone, too. And celery is known to be a source of two powerful natural steroids that stimulate muscle growth, androstenone and androstenol. Well, I don't have to remind us, but I will anyhow, that oats and oat straw are wonderful adaptogenic herbs rich in phytosterols, rich in the lignans and the isoflavones and all of those goodies that we are looking for in the plants that we're going to be using instead of anabolic steroids. So one wonders what to do. Always when we have a vulnerable child, should we say to the child, look, I know, that your boyfriends might be talking to you about using steroids, and I just want you to know that the muscles that you build with steroids isn't as strong as the muscle you would build with, take your choice, oatmeal, fava beans, spinach, and I'm here to help you be as strong and as healthy as you would like by providing you with really good food. Sometimes talking to our children, although it seems like the best thing to do, creates a difficult and embarrassment for them. So often what can work is to, say something silly like, I just read that according to latest research, the scent of celery can stimulate the testicles to produce more testosterone. And then have a big laugh. Or, did you know that the botanical name for pine, P-I-N-U-S, is actually pronounced penis? And that the pollen of pine is very high in testosterone? And have a big laugh. In these ways, our children come to know, without being lectured, that there are green blessings all around us, and that we're not stuck in pharmaceutical medicine. It's a wonderful medicine. And there are many people who are alive today because we have pharmaceutical medicine, because those alchemists began to separate the plants into their constituent parts to look for active ingredients, and thus started the movement toward taking drugs. But I think in this situation, when we remember that our mental ability, our thinking that we are doing something important here by using these plants, is half of the battle. So when I first started studying herbal medicine, they told me that herbal medicine was a matter of belief. It's certainly not. Many herbs do have physiological effects, but perhaps they were at least partly right, and especially when it comes to steroidal compounds. We need to keep our gut flora active and healthy, and we need to keep our belief system intact, just like the little engine that thought it could. Or Eleanor Roosevelt saying, you must do the thing you cannot do. We find that herbs can replace, in most instances, cortisone or anabolic steroids without any of the dangers or the side effects. And that wraps it up for our foray out into steroids. And we are, believe it or not, coming close to the end of our time in pharmaceutical medicine. Next month, we are going to look at those acid reflux drugs, those little purple pills, and we're going to find out what they do, what acid reflux really is, and whether or not they are good for our health. Oh, I'll give the answer away. They're not. Really not. I mean, surprisingly, really not. And talk about what we can do instead. So I'll be back with you next week to start another month of fun here at Time Monk Radio. Thank you, Gemini.
Thank you, Susan, and we look forward to starting the new purple pill discussion and reflux next week. And this concludes. and this concludes.
Don't get sick this week. It's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to come to class sick in order to benefit from it.
That's right. And this concludes part 72 of our series, The Seven Medicines, The Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.